welcome back to Great Work for Restaurants. I'm Pam Monteith, founder of Great Work Online, and this is the show where we talk about how independent restaurants on Toast can use the data that's already sitting in their POS to bring in more covers and more direct orders. This week's episode is a Father's Day episode. If you've seen anything from us on Instagram or LinkedIn this week, you already know the theme. Father's Day is this Sunday, and it's one of the biggest family dining weekends of the year. But today, I want to come at it from a slightly different angle because the restaurants that are going to have a full book this weekend already know something the rest of us are still figuring out. They know who their regulars are. So Toast and Resy just put out a piece of research together. They're calling it the Regulars Report. Honestly, when I read through it, it confirmed a lot of things that good operators already sense about their business. But now there's data behind it. And the headline number is the one that stops you. It's what I'd call the 50 over 7 rule. 50% of a restaurant's volume comes from just 7% of its guests. Half of your revenue is coming from less than 1 in 10 people who walk through your door. If that's true for your restaurant, and statistically it probably is close to true, then the question isn't how do I get more new guests this weekend? The question is, do I actually know who that 7% is? And am I treating them like the 7%? Here's the second number that jumped out at me. The data shows that when a guest joins loyalty program, their return rate moves from around 7% up to nearly 30%. That's roughly 4 times more likely to come back. And if you're on Toast, this isn't a hypothetical for you. Toast loyalty is sitting inside your account right now. The question is whether it's actually switched on and whether you're prompting guests to join at checkout. Because Father's Day is going to bring you new faces, families who don't normally come in, people treating dad somewhere a little nicer than usual. Most of those guests will never hear from you again unless they joined your loyalty program on their way out the door. Third data point, and this one connects directly to what you talked about on the blog this week with Toast Tables. 83% of visits from regulars are advanced bookings. For non-regulars, that number drops to 48%. In other words, your best guests are planners. They book ahead, which means if your reservation system isn't set up to recognize returning guests, or if it's clunky enough that a regular has to think twice, you're adding friction to the exact relationship you can least afford to lose. Father's Day is the perfect test of this. If a regular tries to book Sunday dinner and your Toast tables isn't synced properly, that's not a stranger bouncing off your website. That's someone in your top 7% having a worse experience than they expected. Now, here's the one that I think matters most, and it's the one that doesn't show up in any POS report. 48% of guests say that being remembered by staff is the thing that matters most to them, but only 30% feel like they actually get that recognition. That's an 18-point gap between what guests want and what they feel they're getting. And here's the thing. Recognition doesn't have to mean your server memorizes everyone's order. It can start with something as simple as an email that says, "It's been a few weeks, here's a reason to come back." Or a loyalty point balance that reminds someone you've been keeping track. Small signals, but they close a gap that almost half your guests are telling you they feel. Last data point, and this one's a bit of a warning. 43% of diners who stopped visiting a restaurant said it wasn't one bad night. It was a slow fade, gradual regressions, as the report puts it. 31% pointed to food quality slipping, 22% to price increases, 15% to service tripping. None of those guests had a single bad experience they could point to. They just slowly stopped coming back. And most operators never even notice until that table's been empty for a while. This is exactly why knowing regulars matters. If you can see in Toast that someone who used to come in every other week hasn't been in for 2 months, that's not a guest you've lost. That's a guest who's fading and you still have a window to bring them back. Now, all of this data is about guest behavior, open rates, return rates, booking patterns, and that's useful on its own. But the way I think about it, and the way we work with restaurants is connecting it all to your real business numbers, food costs, labor ratios, prime cost, not just campaign metrics. Because a loyalty email that brings back 10 regulars is great. But if those 10 regulars are ordering your lowest margin items, that's a very different outcome than if they're ordering the dishes that actually move your prime cost. And to be clear, this isn't something you need specific bookkeeper for. If you've got your own accountant or your own system for tracking food costs and labor, the same principle applies. The point is just to look at guest data and financial data side by side instead of in two separate silos. So here's what I'd actually do. And you can do this in under 30 minutes before Sunday. Open your Toast Guestbook, sort by visit frequency, or look at your top spenders over the last 6 to 12 months. That's your 7% or close to it. Pull that list, send them one email or one text. Doesn't need to be fancy. Something like, we know Father's Day gets busy. Here's priority booking, or just a thank you with a small loyalty bonus attached. That's it. One list, one message before Sunday. You're not trying to fill the whole restaurant with this. You're making sure the 7% who drive half your revenue know that you know who they are. So that's the regulars report through a Father's Day lens. The short version: half your business comes from a small group of guests. Loyalty roughly quadruples how often they come back. Your regulars book ahead, so your reservation setup needs to be ready for them. And there's a real gap between guests wanting to be recognized and feeling like they are. If you want to go deeper on any of this, the Toast Table Setup Guide is live on the blog this week, and there's a free Toast marketing activation checklist linked in the show notes. This week's takeaway: you don't need a bigger guest list. You need to know who's already on it. I'm Pam Monteith. Keep doing great work for your restaurant, and I'll see you next Tuesday.